Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. So I wanted to sit down and kind of chat with you guys today about this past year and everything that I did to make it the best year that I've had yet. Honestly, I feel like I can truly say I feel like it is the best year I've had in recent memory, and the one word that I can think to describe the year is enlightening. I kind of think of it, and this is all going to sound probably really dramatic and cheesy, but it is what it is, right? But I kind of think of it as the year that I changed my life and made changes that are going to be lasting and that I'm going to carry forward into even this new year I already have. So I wanted to share them with you guys because I really feel like I crawled my way up from rock bottom to a place where I feel finally confident and comfortable in saying that I am happy. And it was a lot of small things that honestly brought that about. So while it might seem intimidating and like something that you can't do, that's exactly how I felt. And I felt like I was getting nowhere, but I was able to kind of keep that up and build momentum. And I just feel so great now that I really just want to share it with all of you, and hopefully you will find something from this video and know that it honestly, as cheesy as it sounds, it truly does get better. I have been at the bottom of the bottom and I have been there a couple of times now. When I was 16, I went through a phase of that, and when that happened, I kind of had this moment where all of a sudden I was like, I don't want to feel like this anymore, and then I finally started to feel better. But I have felt so bad since 2020, really struggling with my mental health. I have depression and anxiety, and I had just been having the hardest time with it. And I was waiting for that moment where I finally was like, oh, this is it. Because last time that's kind of how it felt. It was like a switch just flipped. But that moment wasn't coming, and it was 3 years now that I had felt so horrible. So I was more than 3 years really, but I was like, okay, what's happening here? Because I was doing the work as opposed to when I was a teenager. I was trying everything desperately and nothing was working. But all of a sudden, it just kind of clicked this year. I wish that I could tell you it was this one magic thing that changed everything. Finally, I was ready, blah, blah, blah. I don't know why it all of a sudden clicked. All I know is that it did, and I am so grateful for that. That being said, I have written out this list of the things that I think made the largest impact for me. So one of the main things that I did was I found comfort in myself. I was always kind of sitting around and waiting around for other people to come into my life, but I was uncomfortable being alone. And I spent a lot of time alone. Even when I was living with my parents were both working, so I was at home alone a lot of the time, and I was just kind of waiting for everyone to come home again. And now my fiance, he works. I still feel really weird saying that, but my fiance, ever since we started dating, he works 12-hour shifts, really long shifts, crappy hours. So I found myself alone more than ever, especially when I moved, because I moved to Quebec and I don't speak French. So I feel like eventually, after a year, I was kind of like, okay, I guess I do need to find comfort in being alone. I think I realized I was kind of avoiding a lot of things that I had kept buried and hidden for a while, and that obviously was a major contributor to why I didn't like being alone and was kind of trying to distract myself with others' company. But I think that some of these practices of spirituality, if you will, that I started to get involved in, that helped me to get to know myself more and open myself up to that. I started meditating, and I think that's kind of one of the catalysts for being comfortable with myself. I saw it as this small thing. Everyone always said that you should do it, and I didn't expect the profound impact that it would have on me, because it was one of those things that led to so much more. So it started with meditating. I tried to do that every morning, whether it was for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and that's something that I'm still doing. But that kind of got me to a place of comfort with being alone with my own thoughts and not having to have something in the background all the time. Now, I do often still have stuff in the background, but I'm not as like, oh my God, I need to have something on. Like, I'm not as anxious just sitting there and thinking. I still don't think I'm very good at meditating because my mind wanders all the time, but it's still something that I try and like am intentionally taking that time for myself. Now from that led to journaling. And journaling was always something that I had tried to do because I love writing, but my relationship with writing has been a little bit rocky, and that's something that I'll talk about eventually, but I still don't think I'm quite ready to talk about it yet. But I started journaling. I was trying to make it a habit to journal every morning and every night. And I realized that like I had tried the 5-minute journal, but a physical journal wasn't working for me. So I set something up in Notion because then I have my phone, I can do it from my phone. I have my computer, like I have all these devices that I can do it from. So it's just easy. And I realized that I needed a guided journal. So that kind of started off as like really easy questions. It's just a quick thing. It honestly could take me like 5 minutes, but it's something that has made a huge difference and I'm still doing. It has morphed into kind of like different questions, but it still is a quick and easy thing. I realized like I don't need to be reinventing the wheel every morning or night, like trying to do this journal. I just need to kind of like get the opportunity to reflect on my day. And that's kind of another thing that I've started to do is reflecting often. I do a monthly reflection and a weekly reflection. And while that might sound like doing the most, if I miss it, it is what it is. I'm being like gentle and kind with myself all the time because now, since I've spent all this time with myself and getting to know my own mind and everything, I realize what works for me. And I realize that so much of my life, I was just like moving forward, but toward what? Like, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but to me, that was one of the revelations that I was able to have because I was spending so much time internally. And that is that I was constantly trying to free up more time, but then I was always filling that time with work and stuff. The dogs are playing, so if you hear noises, they're like going at it beside me. But I wasn't really allowing myself to have that free time. I wasn't allowing myself to do things that weren't productive. And that is one thing that like I don't want to constantly be working on stuff. Like working on myself, sure, that's great. Like I do want to continue to do that, but I don't want to be just like living my life as endless to-do lists. And that's something that I'm still working on. It's definitely taking time to not feel guilty when I'm not doing anything, but it's something that once again, I've been able to realize because I have spent all that time by myself. And it has just been so freeing to be so comfortable being just by myself in my own presence. And I make it always like a really nice time. I set up these rituals and routines that have made my life so much easier. And it's something I've heard a million times, like, but I've never really had established routines. I've never really paid attention to the habits that I had. And I know habits have been like a really big topic lately, but honestly, they do make a huge difference. And I definitely came to realize that this past year when I finally started paying attention to it. But getting back to the ritual, I kind of started with this morning routine, and I definitely haven't been perfect. I've been a lot better recently about it, but I realized that, okay, I want to meditate and I want to journal every morning. So I would make it like a thing. I would make it a theatrical production, so it was something that I would look forward to. I've always been someone who in recent years has tried to get up early. Like I get up at from 5 to 7, I would say, is when I wake up. But no matter when I was waking up, I've made it a point to make sure that I'm doing those things. And that's because I have this routine set. So the routine involves me lighting a candle, so then there's like vibes going on, and then I'll put some lo-fi music on the TV and I'll just sit there, do my meditation, do my journaling, and just have that time for me first thing in the morning. And it just felt so great to like get connected with myself first thing in the morning. Through all of this, I kind of had changed the content that I was consuming as well. So number one, I still was reading fiction books, but I also added in self-help books. I think the book that changed it all for me was a book called Mindset. I can't remember the author, so I'll put a picture of the cover on the screen here, but it is all about having a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. You can Google what that means, but essentially I realized I was stuck in a fixed mindset, which is where when you're faced with a failure, you're like, okay, that's it. And you don't really see it as an opportunity to like rethink things. So I read that book and then like it simmered for a while. I read it and thought nothing of it, honestly. And then it wasn't until like probably a month or two later that I was like, oh, okay, like growth mindset. And I started to implement that into my daily life in little ways. So I started a journey of just reading a ton of different self-help books. Some of them helped me, some of them didn't. I also started to change the content creators that I was watching. I was changing it from people that made me feel jealous, I guess, like people I was envious of, and changed it to people that I found admirable and wanted to be like. So I was still like, jealous isn't the right word, but it was more role models for me, and role models in the sense of their lifestyle. And I would try things that I saw everywhere, and some of it worked and some of it didn't. So what this came down to was, once again, learning about myself and learning about what worked for me versus what worked for other people, and seeing that like it's totally okay if what works for other people doesn't work for me. You have to adapt all of this advice, which there is so much out there. You have to adapt it for yourself. And like, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean that you're broken. And I feel like that's how I used to feel. I was like, why is everyone able to do this? Why can't I do it? But I realized, okay, I need to kind of get to know myself a little bit better and see like my circumstances in my life, and my brain is different than everyone else's. It's just mine. So obviously just blindly following what someone else is doing isn't going to work, but I can take inspiration for that and make it work for me. In this journey of learning about myself, I feel like it was early in the year, I was finally officially diagnosed with ADHD. I had been tested when I was a kid, and it never really was like conclusive, and they said that I should go back, but then I didn't, but whatever. So yeah, I finally was tested. I ended up like also on medication, which we're still kind of figuring out now, but from that, I was able to learn more about ADHD and more about why I am the way that I am. And that also helped me to realize why certain things that other people are doing might not work for me. I feel like I got so much from this journey. I got so much from being able to learn about myself, being comfortable being by myself. Another thing that kind of came from that was that I was comfortable just sitting there and being bored sometimes. I feel like oftentimes like you're constantly looking for the next thing to do. I know I am like 100%. I'm constantly like, I need to be doing something, but I realized, okay, maybe it is okay to kind of like be bored. Maybe it is okay to try and live in the moment. I started to pay more attention to how much I'm like not really existing in the now. And now I am trying to be more like present and aware. And that is really, really hard because I'm constantly thinking of the next thing. I'm always thinking of the next thing that I need to do, which means I'm not really paying attention to what's happening at the moment. But it's something that I'm working on, and realizing that that work is actually enjoyable for me and like fun to make it. Like really, I made it fun for me to be trying to work on bettering myself. That has been just very, very life-changing. Now, obviously, everything we've been talking about is internal, and there are some external things that are going to be coming, but I think what it came down to the most was paying attention to the way that I am thinking and seeing the world, and changing those habit loops that I had and making sure that I'm trying to be more positive. I was always seeing the negative in things, and obviously that isn't going to bring positivity into my life. So I found myself able to come to a point where I was able to find joy in the tiniest, tiniest, tiniest little things. And I think something that really helped me to do this was I do a nightly gratitude list, and I do morning affirmations. And I know this is stuff that you've heard before. I know it's not revolutionary, and it feels stupid and silly and so cliche, but honestly, like, why not try it, right? Like, I was so desperate that I was like, okay, I'll try it. And it took me a while to actually stick with it. But once I stuck with it, I realized that it was kind of like compounding. Like, it was just over time doing that added up, and it was really changing the way that my brain works, to not be like, oh, this is a negative thing, to being like, okay, how can I spin this to a positive? And the number one thing that I can see where this like actively made a difference was this past Christmas. So for Christmas, I was supposed to go home to Windsor. I was supposed to visit my parents. I was really, really excited for it. Obviously, like I love going home, and it has been a while. But my parents ended up actually getting COVID right before Christmas, so I wasn't able to go home anymore. And if that had happened in 2022 or like any of the years prior, I would have like completely lost it. I would have been sobbing. I would have said like, this, nothing goes right in my life, blah, blah, blah. Like I would have been inconsolable. But I cried about it. Like I was sad. It was disappointing, but I let myself be sad. I let myself be disappointed. But then I was like, okay, I can make the best of it. Like I can see my fiance on Christmas. That's nice. I ended up going to my sister's and spending my nephew's first Christmas with him. So that's nice. I spent the day like watching The Grinch. I was like, I can make Christmas cookies. I can make this whole plan. So I was like, wow, like holy shit, has my brain changed, because I didn't immediately go to the negative. I was able to have that balance where like, I'm definitely not into toxic positivity. I was able to be sad about it, but I was like, okay, like there's a good side of things too. I have a lot to be grateful for. And it's just wild to me how those little changes that I didn't even realize I was making added up over time to like just this massive change in me. Now, I have kind of talked about habits and routines, but I think one of the major realizations, because like I said, this was a year of enlightenment and realizations, I realized that your life is made up of those little routines. I don't know if this is just a me thing, but like that was just completely revolutionary to me. Obviously, it's like a duh moment, but I was kind of always waiting. I was like, okay, like eventually I want to do this. I have this dream, this goal. And I was kind of waiting for like the perfect time, or I don't know, but it wasn't things that I was kind of working toward every day. And I was like, okay, how do I expect that to happen if I'm not actually like putting in the effort every day? Because if it's a part of my routine, then I'm going to be getting there like little by little. But it was almost like I thought there was just going to be this like, once again, switch that flipped, and all of a sudden I would become that person that I wanted to be. I would do that thing that I wanted to do. But I didn't realize that I had to add these things in little by little so then I could work on it progressively. And then it also wouldn't be totally overwhelming. It just like completely blew my mind. I feel like I have a hard time explaining that one because it just seems so obvious and stupid, but I just felt like there was going to be this magic change, whatever, and didn't realize I'm the one who has to put in the work. I'm the one who has to take the steps to actually get there. So I do have a little list of things that I made changes on to kind of finish this off, because I've been talking for a really long time. Like I said, I will talk about like more tangible habits and how I implemented those in another video that I have planned to film soon. But essentially what it all came down to was, and I feel like I've said that a million times, but whatever, but it was that I started to make necessary changes in my life. Some were really big and some were really small, but all of them added up to just this massive change. So if you think a change is too small, like there's no change that is too small. I feel like one of the things that helped me the most was going on Pinterest and looking at inspirational quotes, which is so stupid, but these little like aesthetic inspirational quotes, it just completely made a huge difference in how I was seeing everything. And those words like meant a lot to me. So this kind of connects with one of the huge things that I did was I built out my Notion. So I had used Notion. If you don't know, Notion is this app. I don't know how to really describe it, but I had used it like passingly, sparingly. I was never able to really stick to it. But finally this past year, I found myself able to stick to using that for literally everything. So I kind of built it out as a second brain where it just had everything that I needed in one. I have my journal in there, I have my daily planning, my goal plan, everything. And I will do a walkthrough eventually. There are just some pages that I want to like fix up, but making that space that felt so me and was personalized for me and worked for me just made a huge, huge difference. So honestly, like I can't overstate the difference that Notion made in my life. And it feels weird to say that like this app made a huge difference in my life, but it really, really did. I also started to limit my social media time. I was realizing I was spending a lot of time on social media and that wasn't really making me feel great a lot. And by that I mean like Instagram. TikTok I sometimes would get into, but not very often. It was mostly Instagram, just truly like mindlessly doom scrolling, or Facebook, where I don't even know what I'm looking at, but I just keep scrolling. So I started to limit that time, and that came in a few ways, like using the screen time app on my phone. I used that, and then I also was doing social media free Sundays, which I still do. And now I just find myself rarely opening social media, to be honest, which probably isn't the best for content creation, but it is what it is. It does make me feel better, and I've noticed a difference. Speaking of content creation, as you guys may have noticed, I changed my channel and what I was posting completely. So for starters, I kind of went through a phase where I was like, okay, I'm not posting. I'm not going to put pressure on myself for posting. Really, a lot of things that I did came down to not putting pressure on myself. Like, I kept on trying to do so much that I was then setting myself up for failure. And that's something I'm still working on, but I just started filming whatever I wanted, and like, it's constantly going to be a journey, but working on not caring what other people think is something that I have worked on a lot this past year and am still continuing to work on. And that has really manifested itself in my content creation journey, because for some reason that's the place where like I get the most sensitive and worried about what other people think. But I started to make content that felt good to me, that I was loving, that I would want to watch, and stopped seeing it as a job, even though like it is a job, but it was my only job for a while. But now that's not the case, and that definitely made a huge difference for me and allowed me to kind of have more freedom to post different content, which obviously I'm continuing to do. I also started to work on implementing different hobbies into my life. Like I said, I love writing, and kind of bringing creativity back into my life in any capacity has been something very big for me that I have been continuing to work on. So I got myself like a little watercolor paint set, and I have been doing that. I have a little cross stitch thing that I still need to start and try. I'm not sure if I will like it, but we are going to try it. So just trying different things to occupy my time other than like social media or doing things that really don't add anything to my life. And I'm not saying that like every time I'm doing something it has to be beneficial for the future or have an impact. That's not what I mean, but kind of being more intentional is what I'm saying. Within Notion, and kind of adding to that, I started to keep track of everything, which might seem like a lot for people, but it's something, once again, it works for me, it might not work for you, but I started habit tracking. I started keeping track of all the steps of my morning routine and just keeping track of literally everything, because if I don't, it's out of my brain. Like, I can't remember things. I can be horribly disorganized in that way. So actually keeping track of it all in one spot has just been chef's kiss amazing. And it also gives me that little hit of dopamine to like check things off. Even if it's not on my to-do list, I add it on and then check it off, because it just makes me feel more accomplished, and it lets me see the progress that I'm making, and that like, no, I didn't just sit there all day. Like, I did actually do a lot of things. I feel like productivity has come to be kind of this buzzword that everyone's talking about. How can I be more productive? How can I do more? Blah, blah, blah. And like I said, I just realized I was kind of like racing toward nothing. I was trying to free up all this time and be more productive, but then once I had that time freed up, I was filling it with things that were like just more things to do. And that doesn't really make sense. So obviously I was getting burnt out, and I will admit, like, I do still sometimes get burnt out, like at the beginning of this year, and it is the beginning, it's only January 5th right now, but I realized that, oh, I am kind of getting burnt out again, because I realized I was doing too much. So then I took a step back and I was like, okay, what am I doing wrong? What's not working for me? So one of the things was I was trying to time map my days, and I tried that this first week, and it just doesn't work for me. I've tried time mapping before, doesn't work for me, and that's totally fine. Like, we move on from it. It's totally fine, but I just find it too overwhelming. And now, since I've been giving myself that like grace and that balance, I feel a lot better. But balance has definitely been the key, not getting everything done and everything checked off of my to-do list. Your to-do list is never going to end, truly, okay? Like, it always is going to continue. There are always going to be things to do, but just allow yourself to like also have time for yourself. You don't need to do everything. And I know, like, I'm just picturing like past me watching this and being like, yeah, okay, but like, it's true. And I feel like it takes time to get to that realization, but I hope that you give yourself the time to get there. I was always trying to do the most to like impress people. I was like, oh, I'll post 4 videos a week. Well, I'm going to university. Well, I'm doing this. Well, I'm doing that. Like I have a job too, like blah, blah, blah. And I was always like relishing in the comments that were like, wow, how do you do it? Blah, blah, blah. But like, how do I do it is that I'm totally neglecting every other part of my life, and that is not okay. And I am just so much like happier and more fulfilled now that I'm not trying to do the most, and I'm just trying to do what brings me joy. And part of that was kind of focusing less on all or nothing thinking. I am terrible for all or nothing thinking. I get caught in this loop of like, if it's say noon and I haven't done anything, I'm like, well, that's the day. But that's not true. Like, there's still so much more of the day. You can still do so much more. You don't have to do everything, and it's okay if you don't do everything, and it's okay if you just want to sit there. Sometimes, like, there is a balance there as well of being disciplined and actually like doing things, but also being in tune with when you really need a break and when you're just kind of like being a little bit lazy. But that is kind of a work in progress. But the last thing I want to talk about is really the changes that I made in my space. So I feel like maybe because I was like, this didn't really feel like my home at first, and there's a lot of facets to that, but I think because I was having such a hard time mentally, like I was having a hard time making my space feel like mine. And I literally just went to IKEA and bought fake plants, and that, I can't explain the change it made in my life. I can't keep a real plant alive, so I was like, oh, like I don't want to have fake plants everywhere, but honestly, they've made such a massive difference. So I finally got these shelves like set up how I want them to be. I have these little fake plants everywhere, and I actually want to add in more, but now the next thing that I'm going to do is hang art on the walls, because I was having just commitment issues with my space, and I don't know why, but I was like, oh, what do I want the color theme to be? But then I was like, the color theme can just be color. Like, I'm a very colorful person. I don't need to worry about what's trendy, what other people are doing. I don't need to worry about aesthetic and like what is going to look good on Instagram. Like, who cares? I don't care. So then I just started adding all the color that I love and things that make me happy into the space. And it's still a work in progress, but I just feel so much better. And it actually has also encouraged me to add as part of like my daily routine, resetting the space. So then every morning I'm coming down and like it just feels clean, and it feels like somewhere that I'm happy to be. And part of that has been doing something, even if I don't want to do it, like trying to encourage myself by doing something for my future self that like my future self will appreciate. And that was something that was hard for me before, because I didn't even really care about my present self. So I was like, why would I care about my future self? But now that I have taken the time and done the internal work, I'm like, no, I do want to do something for my future self, because I know in the morning I'm going to be so happy that this is all clean. Actually, a big part of that too, this all is coming from the book, How to Keep a House While Drowning. That helped me out a lot. And one of the things that was recommended in that book was baskets. And I have utilized the baskets, not everywhere, but I have 2 baskets, because specifically in the main living area, there's always things that go upstairs or downstairs. And I used to just pile them on the stairs, but then never actually put them away. But now I have baskets for each of those areas, and once I'm done with the stuff, I put it in there, so then it's not just clutter sitting around, and then it's so much easier like every night to actually go and empty the basket. So now my space is clear and it feels like me, and that clear space has just led to such a clear mind. Now, part of that's been more recent is starting a decluttering journey. So I have been working on decluttering because I have a lot of stuff. I've been facing some hard truths about myself, which one of them is that when I am not happy, I spend a lot of money that I shouldn't be spending. So that has led me to accumulate a lot of stuff. And I am working on that 100%. Like, it's a hard thing for me to actually face, but I am aware of it, and now I can kind of take the steps to fix that issue. But yeah, I found that having so much stuff just is overwhelming, and I don't like it. So that's a work in progress, and definitely like the decluttering, I plan on doing some more in early 2024 because I started it in late 2023, started like majorly decluttering. So we're going to continue that. I will never be a minimalist, but I don't need all the stuff that I have. And the last thing that I want to talk about, this video is going to be so freaking long, I'm so sorry, but I found a community where I feel like I belong to. So I mentioned that I live somewhere where they speak French and I don't speak French. I'm working on learning, but I also haven't had a ton of time to learn. Like, it takes a lot of time to learn a new language, and I try my best, but it's also something I really struggle with. So I'm working on it still, but I still like put myself out there, and I ended up joining a burlesque troupe last year. So now I'm doing it for my second year, and I'm actually doing 2 different classes, and it has just been so life-changing. Like, I can't explain how much of a difference that has made to me because it's something that I get to go and do every week. I have made friends from it, which has been really amazing. I'm more exposed to French because it's all in French, obviously, so I'm just like visually learning, but I still have a lot of fun with it. I grew up doing dance, and it's just so fun to like feel good about yourself too. It raises my confidence so much, and everyone there has been like so kind and welcoming, which has just made a huge difference because I was very, very anxious about that. But yeah, it's just been like one of the biggest changes. I love it so much. Also, actually, we got a second dog, which has been really nice. Obviously, that is going to be a little life change, but yeah, I think those are all the things that I wanted to talk about today. I could definitely go on and on about these topics, so let me know. Like, I know this video is going to be so long, and I really apologize, but I just feel like I did so much work this past year that I had a lot of things to talk about. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you gained something from this video, and at the very least, maybe it will make you think a little bit, but know that like if you are having a hard time, I have been there. I am there with you, and like you can get through it. I promise. It is going to feel like you might not be doing anything, you might not be moving, but it's those slow movements that are really going to add up. Even something as small as like changing your thought process, that's going to make a huge difference. And I know it seems impossible and really hard, but you can do it, okay? So yeah, that's going to be all, and I will see you guys in another video soon. Bye!